And I think sometimes when you get to that pinnacle, you're like, not saying that's it, but kind of internally, you're like, oh, that was it. I did it. What's next, you know?
Exactly. Well, you said The Alchemist. That was perfect because I read that last year and finished that book. I was like, that's literally how it is. It's you make all that journey just to find out the treasure was already there, right? And the stuff that we chase, I mean, it's pretty temporary, man. It is. It's very temporary. I think what you're doing with this, you're making connections with people, and that's something you really carry more with you, right? The paychecks, you can get those anywhere, right? But it's those moments with people and that connecting and like I said, planting yourself in something more than just yourself. That's really how you're gonna be fulfilled.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Ray Roberson. How are you doing today, Ray?
I'm doing awesome, buddy. How are you, man?
Man, I can't complain. I really want to thank you for taking the time to jump on with me today, man.
No problem, man. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
You know, it's been a while since we connected. I know we've gone back and forth over the years, and it's just always great to kind of have a little bit of a catch up, you know?
Oh man, it has. My wife still talks about that tour you gave us, which was awesome, by the way. And when I told her I was going to be on the podcast because you saw our audition bloopers, she was like, "Oh, he invites you. I'm the one who made it funny." I was like, "I get it, honey. I get it." So shout out to my wife. Thank you, Courtney, for reading in the bloopers, which is why I'm here. So
Man, I've been loving what you've been doing, and I just was scrolling one day the other day, and I saw that, and man, I just couldn't stop laughing the whole time. And clearly, you couldn't stop laughing either.
You know, that's the thing about when you're acting, the auditions the actual job. And I'm glad I get to, have that fun. Uh, and like I said, it's human. It's not perfect. I think if anybody wants to act or get into it, just understand that you're gonna have mishaps. Laugh at it and proceed through. We were able to get the good takes down. I'm glad I was able to share the goofs with you guys. So yeah. And it's always like that with me and her.
I love it, man. So, I like to kick off the show, talk about the importance of networking. How do we
Yeah.
know each other?
We know each other through my cousin Ace, Aaron. One day, how did we first meet though? I know we know through Ace. I guess we were just hanging out with Ace, and then you were in the group, and we were all just cool.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I'm pretty sure that's how it was. I think Ace probably was in town in Atlanta because we both lived
Yeah,
in Atlanta at the time. And I think it was funny because I think we did that, and then at random we started hanging out, you and I too, just because,
yeah, yeah. Because we're both out here in Atlanta, and Ace he travels everywhere. Godspeed to him. He's out. I think he's out of the country right now with the Air Force stuff. So he'll be
Yeah,
back
man,
soon, thankfully. But yeah, that's just how life is, man.
it's great, man. And I was able to take you and your now wife tour the Hall of Fame, which was always a lot of fun because I loved sharing kind of that journey and story with other people.
And my wife loves history. That's actually how I was able to win her heart over. I asked her a bunch of history questions. I'm into film, so my way of kind of connecting was like talking about film history because I could tell you everything about movies from the '80s all the way up till now. So I mean, she loves history like all kinds. So that, like I said, that history museum, clutch, buddy. That was probably one of our top 10 dates, man. Thank you again for that.
I love to hear it, man. I love film history as well. One of the most devastating things to me is the amount of film that was lost because of the nitrate reels back in the day. A lot of those
Yeah.
films didn't make it, unfortunately, and there's so many amazing titles that are out there
Yeah.
that we'll never get to see unless they randomly appear one day, which happens every once in a great while.
Yeah. I mean, I think digital has definitely changed movies now. That's why you have so many releases, but there's no mistaking how movies on film look. I'm still a physical collector of movies. Like I like streaming and all that, but you gotta have ownership of the things you like. And that's something people don't realize. These streaming services, like you're technically subscribing for them and their rights to show you the movie, but any day they could lose the rights to that movie, and that movie you paid for online can be gone. And that actually happened to some friends of mine. So those movies I absolutely love and adore, like the classics, like the RoboCops, Lethal Weapons, all that stuff. I own physical copies of all that. Same for music. Buy records, man. Support artists, buy records. So yeah.
It's great, man. I want to know that comic book issue #1, your origin story. Who are you, Ray?
Oh man, humble beginnings. Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's a cheesehead. And then my family moved to Missouri, and that's where I really mostly grew up. I've always loved theater. I've always loved, film and television. Did theater in high school, played basketball. I thought I was going to be the basketball guy, but I only ended up 6 feet, which is not bad height for basketball. But I was a good defensive player, but I got cut my junior year. And when I got cut my junior year, I was like, well, let's go back to my first love. Let me go to theater. And I had fun in theater. I did great in it. I did a lot of shows. I did repertory theater and all that stuff. And then after high school in St. Louis, I was kind of just going through the motions. Okay, you graduate high school, get a job, make a living. And then one day a friend of mine was like, hey, look, these agents out here, they are doing an open call. You should go check your agents out because I know you're an actor, right? Go for it. So I went to an open call for Now Talent, my agents in the Midwest. Shout out to, April and Christy. They're still my agents out there, amazing people. And, they were the first ones to say yes to me. And since then, I did commercials with Bud Light, worked with great athletes like Ozzie Smith. That was my first gig, is working with Ozzie Smith for Bud Light. And then I did other commercials, and I've done short films. I've got a film on Amazon right now called Vincent's Vow, and that just kind of was the journey. I moved out to Atlanta in 2019 because even though I was doing good in St. Louis, there was always that thing tapping on the shoulder like, well, go bigger, man. See what else you can do. Go bigger, right? I could have been comfortable and settled. So in Atlanta, I came out here in 2019. I transferred my communications leadership warehouse job, and the world shuts down. COVID hit, the world shuts down. But I think that was great because I was sort of becoming addicted to the chase. And, after that, found my wife. We bought a house. We have a kid. We have 2 dogs. So, along the way of pursuing this thing, I found what really mattered in life, which is family and love. So that's sort of my origin story. That's
Ray,
probably
I
the
love
whole
that.
arc right there.
Ray, I love that, man. Growing up in St. Louis, what was life like there?
Missouri was great, man. I grew up in a little small town 30 minutes outside of St. Louis called O'Fallon. But every time I could get out of O'Fallon, I was in St. Louis, right? All the fun stuff was downtown St. Louis. First things first, it's a small town with a lot of great food. A lot of people don't think of St. Louis as a foodie town, but trust me, the barbecue and all the, Italian food there, fantastic. Uh, there, I mean, I pretty much got some good roots in just that Midwest work ethic. Um, I learned a lot about how much people will matter in your life. Like it's a small world. It's a small world. Don't get an ego and think you can just treat people how you want to, because you will stumble across people again. Missouri was that kind of place. No matter where you went, you will always run into somebody you knew, whether it be from elementary school, high school, and all that. So I learned it's a very small world growing up in St. Louis pretty quick. I knew I needed to get out because I had gotten so comfortable there. Like I said, it's not too hard to make a good living for yourself in the Midwest because, like I said, you get a job, you stick to it, and you just keep doing that until you grow old and die. That's what a lot of people in Missouri did. Wanting to pursue the arts and things like that, I knew I needed to branch out more though and go to a city that was really doing that, which was out here in Atlanta. It's cool because now, back in St. Louis, I was probably one of the well-known guys because it's a small town. Not as many actors are doing commercials or indie film work, and now I'm in a big leagues here, and I'm watching people, book gigs on Stranger Things and doing stunt work for Cobra Kai, and I'm watching all this. So just to be in this environment is great, man. it's amazing. Like I going from St. Louis to Atlanta, the principles are the same, but it takes a lot of humbling to start over again, if that makes sense. Because it's really hard to give up your comfort level, but it's also awesome to just be in an environment where people are successful. Because when you're in that environment, it's only a matter of time before it catches on to you too.
Ray, I couldn't agree. And you touched on a very important point. What I think a lot of people miss is that Midwest work ethic. I don't know how much we realize it at the time, but when you get out to a place like Atlanta or wherever you may be living, people notice, and whether they say it or not, they're like, "You work really hard," and not like over the top doing too much, but like you're consistently doing whatever you're supposed to be doing as best as you can. And it's weird because it's like all the time, and I think sometimes for us from the Midwest, it's just like that's just what we do. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. If I'm here, I'm work hard. I might be laid back about it, but I'm really working hard. You know.
I mean, really, you're not gonna get anything done anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? It's uh going back to where you grew up in the Midwest and wherever you want is only a 5-10 minute drive. It's like, well, of course, I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm gonna go to the tool store and get it myself. And I'm gonna go here and there. Versus Atlanta, where if you miss your exit, you're on the road for an hour. So let me have things brought to me, you know. But Atlanta's becoming a city where you have so many different people now anyway. You see different work ethics and you see different styles, and it's very exciting, it's interesting, but at the same time, you're catching things where it's like, well, oh, that's how y'all do it. You know, not judging, but I'm like, I think when you grow up in the Midwest, you get a little bit of everything. And it's an advantage. It is. It's an advantage. You can either go out to the country and handle your business, or you can kind of walk down and walk into a city office and kind of know how to carry yourself too.
What was that final kind of step for you to move to Atlanta? It's one thing to talk about it. You were, as you mentioned, you were probably a little bit of a big fish in a smaller pond in St. Louis, and a lot of people would have been comfortable. I'm sure you would have kept booking gigs and doing things like that. What finally pushed you to actually make the move down to Atlanta, or I guess over to Atlanta in your case?
I think it was when I had a national commercial for Sprint. I had an AMC commercial. I had a lottery commercial. I had a recording studio about 10 minutes from my loft where, I could do voiceover work. I had everything I wanted and I still felt empty. That's where I was like, okay, God, I'm way too comfortable. I'm not pushing myself past that limit, right? And it was New Year's 2018. It was New Year's. I was sitting out there on the roof of where I was staying at. Fireworks are going off, and I'm just kind of sitting there staring out, like, yeah, I'm not pushing myself where you want me to go, God. I understand, and I think that was the limit. And and a year later in 2019, I had everything packed up into my car, and I was heading out here. I think you gotta trust your gut, and when your gut's telling you, "Hey, you're living a little shallow right now," you gotta believe it. You have to believe it. When that happened, I moved out here. I did more volunteer work, which was cool. Uh, I started dressing up like Captain America and going to hospitals and visiting kids, right? That was when you start feeling hollow, that means you need to start giving more. So I started doing more output. I started doing the dressing up as Capt, going to kids in hospitals. And then I also volunteered for this camp called Camp Quality, where basically it's just a camp for kids who have survived cancer, who are going through it. I started doing more of a volunteer work like that when I moved out here because, like I said, technically I had proven myself. I booked something. I don't care who. I may not be the Rock. I may not have done that yet. There's levels to acting, just like there's levels to athletics. But when you wake up and you're cashing checks doing what you love, you're a freaking success. Period. Right? And you don't want to make your whole life and career and purpose about impressing others, because people quickly forget the dead. You've got you've got to find your lane. You got to find your purpose and go for that. So that was the moment for me, sitting out there 2018 on a rooftop watching New Year's fireworks go off, and just not really feeling like I'm I am putting out what I need to put out and pushing myself.
Right, I love that, and I think those moments come to people in the most random and weirdest varieties. For me,
Yeah,
it was I was at the national championship in what 2022, and in
man. Mhm.
21 I had realized I was ready to move back to the Midwest. The Bucks had won the finals. I was back here for a bachelor party when the Bucks went to Game 6. I went to Game 6 down the Deer District. They won it all. I refused to come back for another week to work because I was like, well, we have a parade, so I'm staying for the
Yeah.
parade. And I think mentally I'd realized I was ready to move back to Wisconsin, but of course not jumping on the first drive home. It was more so trying to find that avenue. And I remember being at the national championship. Georgia just won their first, title in so many years, and the confetti's coming down. And I realized mentally, I'm like, all right, I'm ready for what's next.
Mm.
At a job where I could have literally done that until I retired and or died, it was kind of a scary moment. I think when someone told me that one of my first few days, they're like, "Oh, you can have this job forever." I'm like, "Forever's a long time, my friend."
It's a long time, and I think when you are on the grind before you even hit that milestone in your life, you become very obsessed with it. Moments like that hit you because we tend to become obsessed with those milestones. It's cliche that it's all about the journey, but the reality is it is about those journeys because those milestones happen so frequently, but that journey is a constant thing. Literally, I was working in St. Louis, driving 3.5 hours to KC for an audition, and then driving back to St. Louis. So 6.5 hours on the road, probably an hour out there in KC. Just obsessing over that, man. Back and forth, back and forth. And then when you book something, you're kind of like, wow, I spent a lot of time getting here. And the moment was great, but it's like, okay, what do I have to really show for it now? Right. So, becoming obsessed with your passion is cool, but it can come at a cost. You've got to have roots too. You've got to plant yourself in something. And for me, my family, that's my anchor now.
Right, I couldn't agree more, man. It's the book, The Alchemist, man. I think I was so obsessed with. You're so obsessed with the journey. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, to the normal person, driving 6 hours round trip seems terrible, but there's some kind of weird. I remember, like, basically living out of my car, a couple museums, and making no money. But it's like, all right, I know there's this next step, and I think sometimes when you get to that pinnacle, you're like, not saying that's it, but kind of internally, you're like, oh, that was it. I did it. What's next, you know?
Exactly. Well, you said The Alchemist, that was perfect because I read that last year and finished that book. I was like, that's literally how it is. You make all that journey just to find out the treasure was already there, right? Um, and the stuff that we chase, I mean, it's pretty temporary, man. It is. It's very temporary. I think what you're doing with this, you're making connections with people, and that's something you really carry more with you, right? The paychecks, you can get those anywhere, right? But it's those moments with people and that connecting and like I said, planting yourself in something more than just yourself. That's really how you're gonna be fulfilled.
I couldn't agree more, Ray. Man, on everyone's journey, you make a decision not really knowing the outcome. Can you give me a time where you made a decision and just went for it?
Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna Yeah, I'm gonna go out for this. And my wife, this is me giving props to my wife actually. It was during lockdowns, during COVID. I remember I was out here, I was new in town, I was trying to meet people still. And I remember I had this app. I went to delete it and her profile came up at the last minute. I was about to delete this app, right? I tried dating like one or two people out here in Atlanta. I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna date Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna be a monk. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do my volunteer work. I'm just not gonna date out here in Atlanta. All right. But her profile came up, and I was like, you know what? Let me go for it. Right. I read her profile. She likes history. I see all these cute facts about her, and I just sent her a message. I said, hey, look, you like history? What's your favorite history fact? And I kid you not, 30 seconds later, I get this paragraph about Henry Ford and how he started the 5-day work week and 40 hours and this and that. And I was like, okay, she's legit. She knows what she's talking about. And me and her chatted back and forth for like a week and a half. And then I finally, and my birthday was coming up. So I was like, hey, look, it's my birthday. I'm new in town. I have nobody really celebrate it with. Let's meet up for my birthday if you don't mind. And we sure did. We went to STK out there in Midtown, and the rest is history, man. You know, usually when the things you're not looking for are the things you need the most. Those are the little surprises God throws at you, and you're like, okay, I see it. So I wasn't looking. The best thing on earth found me.
That's awesome, man. It's great to have a support system, especially as
Yeah,
you mentioned you were new in town. And then, man, Atlanta's a different place, and I love
yeah,
it. I go back there as much as I can, but it's different than the Midwest. I'll put it that way.
yeah. I think because I've been to LA, New York, and Atlanta. The one thing about Atlanta is that it's got a lot of people. Everybody's got to hustle in Atlanta. You're never gonna meet somebody who's just doing one thing. Like everybody's got something. They can be working in a warehouse and they cut hair. They can be doing work at the airport, but they also make music on the side. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Everybody's on the grind in Atlanta. Uh, but like I said, the one thing you gotta be careful about any environment is don't be so obsessed with impressing other people. Because like I said, people quickly forget the dead. Do not make your life about impressing other people with your riches because nobody cares. Nobody cares, man. Everybody's so focused on doing what they have to do. Do not focus on impressing other people. Love other people, be there for other people, but impressing people, that needs to be the last thing you're trying to do because people have their own obsessions, really.
Couldn't agree more, Ray, man. Title of the podcast: Into the Unknown. What are you working on?
Right now, I'm working on my second feature script. Okay, I wrote my first script I ever wrote was a short film called Buddy Cops. Actually, the posters for it right there. It was an action comedy. I wrote the short film. We filmed it back in Missouri. Shout out to Studio 2060, Madison and Mike. They helped me put it together. They had the effects and cars blew up everything, and we won Best Action Comedy at Action Film Fest in New York. So now I've made that full length script. I'm also writing a horror comedy right now. And then this January, I'm actually starting to take training in voiceover work. I definitely want to do more voiceover stuff. I love podcasts. I love audio books and I love video gaming. And I'm like, let me expand to that. Plus, I do good at that. I get to spend more time with my kid and work from home. So that's what I'm working into next. I'm looking forward to that next month.
I love that, man. I think it's one of those things you can also just, as you know, make yourself multi-dimensional. So,
Yeah.
for example, a lockdown happens. Let's pray that we don't go through that again. But
Yeah.
you still have a source of income that you can tap into and find ways to continue to work on your craft while situations and seasons change.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like being in the zone is the same, whether it's business or acting or sports, anything like that. You always got to keep working on your game. You've always got to say, okay, what areas can I improve my game on? You know what I'm saying? So that's how I see it. The work you do is the stuff that uh, you don't get credit for. You know what I'm saying? The stuff you do behind closed doors, that's what really makes it count. You don't start working out when you get on the field. Like by then it's too late. You about to lose. If you ain't worked out since you got to the field, you're about to lose. You do all that work in the training room, you do all that work behind closed doors. And that way, when you get to perform in front of other people, all the hard stuff's out the way. And the same thing for acting, voiceover work, writing. You do all the training, all the hard work. Before you even get to set. Most people only recognize you for getting to set, but if you're an athlete, are you only going to put up good stats when you're around people who know you? No, I'm gonna play my game the best I can right here, right now on this field. Right? I'm not my efforts not determined by your recognition. It's gonna be great no matter where you put me. And that's how I feel about anything I do. My effort's gonna be great no matter what it is. And eventually you get recognition, maybe or not. But I look myself in the mirror and I'm proud of the life I got, man.
Right, I love that, man. I think so much of it, it's that whole saying, the overnight success, but 10 years in the making. No one
Man,
sees the things behind closed doors, man. No one sees the commercials that flopped, or the ones you thank God that it didn't come out because it wasn't that great, or
thank
it
God.
just didn't
Yeah,
pop off like.
there's no such thing as an overnight success. There is no such thing. whoever hears this, there's no such thing as an overnight success, period. It takes a lot of hard work to get to where anybody gets to. That's why I never get envious or jealous of anybody, because I know they're right place, right time. Don't know what they went through, but to get to that place, they had to do something, man. Even those people who we feel like are freaking overnight successes, like freaking Hawk Tua. Look, that girl, she bought the dress, she learned how to drink, she did this and that. She was at that street at the right time on that podcast or whatever and said that and, got famous, but it never just happens overnight. There are habits that get us to where people need to be in places we have to be at. So don't get caught up. There's no such thing as overnight, man.
Right, I love that. And for people like that, it's one of those things. It's one thing to get there, but
Yeah.
if you don't have that level to maintain it,
Yeah.
was it even worth it? It's kind of like that shooting star in the night. It just gone right away. Whereas
Yeah.
as I think you build and grow, it the experience I think makes you want to hold on to it longer, if that makes sense.
And that's where I feel like where we had our moments where we hit a milestone and we kind of hit pause. I think I'm very thankful for those moments, because if you accelerate too fast to the top and you get everything you want too soon and you don't really have a good center, that's hell on earth, man. Like I said, having everything you want but still feeling empty inside, that is terrifying. So you got to hit the brakes and you've got to do that interior work so that when you do make it to the next milestone, you can appreciate it more, you know?
I couldn't agree more, man. So if people want to learn more about what you're working on, where can they find you on social media, learn more about your acting, and do all that
Oh,
great stuff?
Instagram. I'm on at the one Ray Roberson on Instagram, and also on LinkedIn, Raymond Roberson on LinkedIn. That way, it's more you see all my communications skills and all that on LinkedIn. If they want to connect and work, hey, we got it.
Well, Ray, I'll make sure to connect all that, link that all in the show notes. I just want to say, man, it's been great to get to know you over the years. It's cool to see what you're doing, man. Just appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you too, man. I really do, man. It's great what you're doing. You're a great person, man, and I'm glad Ace brought us together. I'm glad he's got a good friend like you in his life too.
Shout out to Ace. He'll be a guest on soon at some point. Working
Yeah.
on that. He's a bit busier than I am these days, so
Yeah,
we're
he's
gonna
pretty
make that.
busy. He's pretty busy. But he's in the gym,
Oh,
that's for damn sure.
that is for sure, man. Looks
Yeah.
like he could still play ball at this point. Well, Ray, we'll talk soon, man.
Appreciate you, bro. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.